What's going on, guys? It's RPG Zeke here, coming at you with another video of Sleeve This. This time we're going through one of my deck lists, one I've had sleeved for a while. It's gone through quite a few changes, but here it is, my blue and red deck. We're going to kind of talk it out, go through ratios, kind of give you some other things, and look, I even did something different. I found a way that we could draw on screen as I explain things, because it makes way more sense this way. So let's go through the ratios. This is my blue-red deck, also known as I Showed You My Nexus, Please Respond was the title of it, because there are so many Nexuses packed in here that do oh so many good things. We've got 25 spirits, 9 Nexuses, 16 magics. Starting from the low end, moving into the high end on the spirits, the ratios here are kind of packed into just what makes blue-red so good. I will start off by saying this right now. If we look at the cards here, we've got this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. This will all make sense in a minute, I promise. Just let me circle all of these. This one. And this one. All these cards that I just circled are from BSS 05s exclusively. So that is really good for a couple of different reasons. The first one being that you can get into Battle Spirits in box 5 and get majority of a pretty good deck going with blue-red. I did say before in another video that I do like the direction Battle Spirits is going with some of their box sets when it comes to dual colors, because they're providing you with a lot of value to just get these cards that you have a very good chance of pulling, and then using those actually in a deck list to immediately start getting in and playing the game at a good level. And yeah, I'm a big fan of it. And then when we go back and look at the other... That's so cool. When we go back and look at the other cards, this guy's from a promo pack, so you do have to source him if you want him. Otherwise, you don't even have to play with him. There's another blue-red card you could easily use in substitution of this. This card is a very easily obtained, especially through third-party markets. Cthulhu Shark, which will go down what that card's kind of doing for the deck. That's from BSS 03. This is another card that's from BSS 03. This card is from the starter deck for blue, so a very accessible card. This card, a very requested, highly used red removal tool from BSS 01. But, you know, outside of that card, we've got a lot of value here from how to get the other blue cards, the blue-red cards. Not bad. And then when we look at the other options, this is a Nexus from set 1. This is a draw, and like I said before, a magic card from set 1. And then this card here is from the white starter deck. So it's really nice because it does make getting the cards a lot easier for this deck. And that was one of the things I was kind of looking at when building this. I was like, man, like I don't want to play Hydra. Hydra is a high value card, or at least still is looked at as a high value card. And there's a lot of cool things now that you can do in blue-red that you can kind of get out of the generic blue playstyle that Hydra had to do previously. Although, yes, there's been a ban list. Yes, there's been some other things that have made us move away from that card in general. But this deck is still very fun. So let's kind of go through it. Starting off the bottom end here, we've got Clionest. Big thing with this guy is we're using him for his ability. When he attacks, you're able to draw a card and discard a card. That is helpful. You're going to have some cards in here that actually do things for you when you discard a card. We'll talk about those. And then you're also able to filter your deck. If you have something in your hand you kind of wish you didn't see early, you do have that ability on a swing to ditch it, get rid of it, and pull something from the deck. Blue-red has really cool because it's able to filter through the deck pretty fast. This is one of those cards that's going to help you do it. And one of your early spirits you're able to throw down. He's a 3-cost 2 reduction, so that's not too hard to do. Then we're going to move into the next guy. This guy's mainly for control, but he does pay off once the opponent starts playing into him in a bad way. So if the opponent uses any kind of magic card, doesn't matter at what point it is from their hand, you're going to ramp a core. Getting another resource just from the opponent, maybe wanting to draw, or maybe wanting to set up something in main, whatever it is, you're able to profit off that interaction. And then his chain red is if they do it and you have a red symbol on board, turn around and cleave one of their 3,000 or fewer BP spirits. Very good controlling aspect with Minoctopus. And again, he is the promo card, so you will have to source those elsewhere. This is a very good card from BSS 05 and is used in a lot of deck lists now, mainly using her for her Wind Summon effect. If you spend the Soul Core as part of summoning this thing, pop a Nexus, which you have plenty of in this deck, and those Nexuses can be recursioned and come back from the trash, as we'll talk about with another card. But you're able to draw 2 cards. So not only do you have one of the magic cards we'll jump to really quick, Star Blessed Draw, which is a very common card, mainly for its effect here for drawing the 2 cards, and then also the burst effect, drawing 2 additional cards for free, is really nice. But yeah, just having that on a body. I said this before in a prior video, I think Battle Spirits is going to go the way of finally getting us more draw on bodies, and I am not wrong. We already have 1 option available. We have 2 options available in this deck that are already kind of helping us get there, which is really, really cool. And we know from the releases coming out in BSS 06, they are also heading more in that direction, which is great. Next up, our early game boss monster, if you'd like to call her that, is Skybinder Knight Zemitsa. This was the card that was illustrated or conceptualized by the guy that does the Digimon, I think? Digimon, right? If I'm not mistaken. Big thing on her, you have an Astral Spirit in here, which is awesome. With Astral, she can't be blocked unless it's by another thing that has Astral on it that can catch her on the other end. And then the thing here, which is really good for your early game play, which is you're able to take 2 cores from your trash and put them into your reserve just upon swinging, and then you can pop 3,000 or fewer BP. You're going to notice with blue-red, the whole thing here is being able to sustain the board pretty early. You are cleaving things at a BP threshold, and you're cleaving things at a cost threshold. Talking about cleaving things, we immediately go from a 4 cost into a 6 cost Cthulhu Shark. This guy's primarily used for a board clear, so it says here, as an additional cost, you must destroy one of your blue Nexuses. Again, we're going to go into that in a minute, but you do have a lot of Nexuses to work with in this deck. When you use him as a, when you summon him and you pay off that additional cost, you're able to destroy all spirits without a soul core on them. Surprise, surprise, if you didn't know, your opponent, at most, at the current time of making this video, can only have 1 soul core on their side. So even if they do have it on a spirit and they have like 4 others next to it, you're going to pop all those spirits. Now, it does kill things on your side too, and it'll also kill Cthulhu Shark if you don't have the soul core on him. So you definitely have to premeditate a little bit on where the soul core is at, and if you want to wipe the entire board and start fresh. But it does help you gain that traction if you are losing your early game or just having a hard time establishing. Taking spirits away in the main step when you're setting up the board is awesome. Cthulhu Shark's really, really good now, in my opinion. And then if we look at his other ability, it's cool, but like you can't really expect it to happen most of the time. It's while this spirit attacks, if he kills something by BP comparison, select a Nexus from your trash and place it without playing its cost. He can help you get a Nexus back if he happens to swing and kill something. There is a way to give Confront and actually make the opponent block you, so you can have it happen. It's just having the 6 cores needed for Cthulhu Shark specifically to get to that level 3 might not happen. So just something to consider. But it is there as an option, but not something we're really going for. Our big guy here, which is probably one of my favorite cards from BSS 05, is Waterworm Caldera Dragon. This guy is definitely one of your boss monsters in this deck. When he is summoned, you can discard a card from your hand to pull Nexuses from your trash with a combined total cost of 6 or fewer, which means there are some Nexuses you're going to be able to pull 2 of. There are some Nexuses you're able to pull 1 of when Caldera comes down. And then Caldera, when he swings, he can kill a 3 cost or fewer. And then if he's his level 3, he can destroy a Nexus to refresh himself. And then it is specific to refresh Nexuses, as you'll see. There are some Nexuses in this build that can be exhausted, which makes it so Caldera wouldn't be able to target those. But just something to consider while we're looking at it. And then we're moving into the tippity top of the boss monsters, which is our new Ascend guy here. Again, the blue-red cards that came from this set are so cool because they have such neat synergy. There's a lot of points here, especially for Caldera. You can ditch a card from hand. With Clioness that we just talked about, you're able to ditch a card when you draw. This guy, if for some reason you have him and you just don't want to utilize him, he's not dead in hand. He actually does give you something in return for throwing him to the trash. When this card, right here, as it says, as soon as I can find where my cursor's at, here we go. If you're discarding him from your hand, select one of your opponent's spirits with 2 or more cores. place a core from the void onto it. So he will ramp onto one of your blue-red spirits as long as he's ditched from hand. That is so cool. And then his ascend cost is pretty easy to hit. It's a 4 cost or more. He can ascend on top of Clayonetta, Zamitza, your Cthulhu Shark if you really wanted to. He doesn't care about typing, only about cost. And the cool part about this guy is he's all about shutting down the game when your opponent isn't paying attention to cores or is aware that you're playing this guy. When this guy attacks... Oh, excuse me. I started reading it. During your turn, when the opponent uses a magic card from their hand, they must pay 3 cores as additional cost. So even if they have full cost reduction and they think they're safe with maybe their Dream Bomb or with maybe a Deadly Balance, whatever it might be, they do have to pay an additional cost when he attacks. And that stays for the turn, not just when he's attacking or just in that small window. So he taxes the turn as long as he's able to turn sideways. That can set you up for a game close or a game shutdown pretty easily if the opponent doesn't have the cores needed for anything that they would usually pay for to keep themselves alive. So that is pretty cool. And that is exclusive to Magic cards. So, you know, if your opponent's going to swift something in, like a Spirit to block you, whatever the case is, it's only for Magics. That's all it's taxing here. Such a cool card, though. Big fan of that one when that one got shown off. And that's why it's in my deck. Next up, we're going to move on to the 9 Nexuses here. This one's from BSS03. It is a card you'd have to seek elsewhere, but it is very good in this deck, in my opinion. I'm very happy that Enchained Arena finally found a home in blue-red, or at least it seems like it. When you put it down, if you destroy it, which again we talked about, Caldera will destroy it. Cthulhu Shark will destroy it if he's coming down, whatever that situation is. And keep in mind, it's a 3 cost, which means for us, if we were to have 2 of these in trash, Caldera can pull 2 of these from trash, and then you can start setting up reduction again if you need it. But the other thing is you get a core when the thing is destroyed, so it's ramp, a way to interact within the deck archetype to actually get some ramp out of it, which is really interesting. And then the 2 cores on, your opponent's spirits that cost 5 or more cannot attack unless they pay 1 core. It is a great way to establish board presence and have your opponent pay for wanting to interact or attack you. So it does help stall out the early game so you can try to establish and come back. The one of, which is part of the ban list, which I think is fair, is Volcanic Canyon. It's a BSS01 Nexus. And then this thing, you're primarily using it for the draw step effect. During your draw step, draw an additional card. After you draw, discard a card from your hand. So you're drawing 2, but you have to ditch 1. That does proc some interesting things in this deck as we get to the next Nexus, but that is the primary reason we're using it. If we see it, great, but the deck does draw fast enough on its own where you don't need to see it. But if you do, it's definitely something your opponent's probably going to target or get rid of pretty fast. This card is so much fun. The next Nexus here. So Volcanic Island, I know I haven't shown it, but if we scroll down just a little bit, this is a 2-symbol Nexus. It is giving us a blue reduction and a red reduction. This card opens up so much utility for this deck. Let's look at it. The first effect, when destroyed, you can pay a core to place it from your trash exhausted without paying its cost. If you use this as a Cthulhu Shark target, you don't lose the reduction. You can pay the core, keep it alive, and still keep it there to help further the rest of your other plays. Caldera Dragon can pop this, you pay a core, and then he can exhaust it essentially from the trash, and then still have it there for the next turn if you want to do multiple swings with Caldera. Getting Caldera up to level 3 to swing multiple times makes him a big threat. And this Volcanic Island does help feed into that. The second effect is also no slouch either. 2 cores on at any point during your turn, which can proc with Volcanic Canyon. It can proc when you summon Caldera. It can proc when you swing with Clayonette. There's a whole bunch of ways of ditching a card from your hand. When you discard a card, select one of your spirits. It gains 3000 BP and confront during the turn. There is nothing scarier out of a blue-red situation than getting confront on Caldera, and then you swing so many times because you have all those Nexuses, and you're killing stuff because there's 3 costs that are just blowing up when you attack or lower, and then also you're doing it because you can pop a Nexus to keep swinging, and when you do that, he's got confront. He's now going to be a 14,000 spirit. There's not a lot of spirits that are going to stand up to that or be willing to commit to a magic to try and keep themselves alive. And it is threatening because now you're fishing those magics out of their hand if they decide to do that. If they're going to Dream Bomb Caldera, fine. Get the Dream Bomb out of their hand, get rid of that defense resource, and then keep swinging the following turn. If they send him back to hand, or if they can't kill him outright, it's only more profit for you, because again, Caldera comes back down, you're able to do his Wind Summon effect again. So then you're able to pull more Nexuses from the trash if you're early, or if you're mid to late game, which is really cool. So that interaction between these two cards is awesome. Again, Caldera has been one of my favorite cards. I've put him in so many different decks, trying to get him to work in so many different things, because he is just that good, and it's super cool to see a card like that. Next up, we're going to move into Magics. There's 16 of them. No surprise, we're going to talk about this card a lot. I'm not going to give it a lot of airtime. Absolute Ice Shield, 4 copies. It's a way to stay alive. It's a way to keep our life at a certain number if we wanted to hover there. And then it's enables us to keep playing the game so we're not dying super fast. Star Blessed Draw, we kind of already talked about. You're able to get the Burst. You can draw 2 cards for free. If you have the resources, which you typically will, because again, this is a red card that sees 2 reduction, meaning we can pay 2 to draw 2 in most situations. And it does help us rotate the deck. So at the very least, if you can't get the Burst and then also pay for the 2, you can at least pay the 4, the 2, whatever it might be, and still draw 2 cards, which is really good in this deck. You might be noticing, hey, there's no Strong Draw. In most of my times when playing with this deck, Strong Draw was not doing enough to keep me in it. If anything, it made me in a weird spot where I kept putting stuff to trash that I didn't want to necessarily do so fast, because Strong Draw is very easy to use, especially in this deck. You can pay 1 core, see 3 cards, ditch 2. It's great for filter, but it does leave your hand size feeling small, and a lot of times a small hand size will make the opponent pretty aggressive, and then you kind of have to play into that different mental state of, do you have the card that keeps me off of you, yes or no? Another big card that's just good for control, as well as an aggressive control as well, is Burning Force, very good red card. It's able to burn a Nexus, so you can just kill a Nexus outright if it's helping your opponent establish reduction. If it's helping your opponent, just like your Nexuses help you, typically you don't want them to stay out all that long, so you're going to get rid of them. And then it's also its other effect. You can select 2 of your opponent's spirits with 3,000 or fewer BP and destroy them. Again, more into the red-blue stuff that we talked about. You're killing and cleaving stuff based on their cost or based on their BP thresholds. So you're really making your opponent think about, okay, is my opponent too weak? Can I keep him here at this lower BP? Does he have that other thing in his hand that's probably just going to kill it anyways, like one of the cards we're going to get to? More than likely, the answer is yes, with how often this deck can draw. Next up, we've got Dream Bomb. I kept it at a 2 of. You can size this up if you feel like balance is a better tool for you individually, but sending a card back to hand never helps. You're mainly doing it for the burst effect as well, which is returning a Nexus back to their hand. Burning Force will kill it outright. Sometimes you don't want to kill it, you just want to trick the opponent to reduce their reduction next turn. Letting yourself get hit, which is an easy proc when you lose life, and then being able to send a Nexus back to hand is super sick. And then, of course, you can pay for it. Just outright select an opponent's spirit, send it back to their hand. Boom, take that. Now they're back, or maybe the thing that was going to kill you is now back in their hand, and they didn't expect it, and now you're ahead of them. So it's a really good card. Next up, we got Floodstream. Always good to keep tokens in check. Tokens being the 0 cost cards, because this thing will cleave them outright, as we'll get to in a moment. You're really not using it for this effect here, for the burst. I have seen it used in the burst. Typically, whenever you get this in hand, you're just trying to cleave or use it as a defensive tool, which is part of the main or the flash effect here. Select any number of your opponent's spirits with a combined total cost of 5 or fewer and destroy them. This, for example, if you're playing an aggressive token style deck that has like 3 of the new Mecha Leaf Kindreds or whatever it is on the board, Floodstream will kill all of them. It's looking for a cost total of 5. So 0 plus 0 plus 0 is still less than 5. So you can absolutely select all those as a target. And then you could also reach up, grab a 3 cost, grab a 2 cost, grab a 5 cost, just a single target. But Floodstream will help you get around some of the BP threshold stuff that this deck also has. Water Spout, another one of my favorite cards of this set. You're able to kill one of your opponent's spirits that is 5,000 or fewer, and check out this reduction. It is a 5 cost, but you can get it all the way down to 1, which makes it really, really good. But yeah, selecting something of 5,000 or fewer BP and then just destroying it outright is awesome. And then Chain Blue, which is huge. A lot of times you can set up a volcanic island, get a caldera down, and then right there, you're only going to pay 2 for this and cheekily sneak something up to level 3. A lot of the stuff in here does have a blue symbol, as you're going to find out or have already seen. And for that reason, being able to just say, yep, this is all of a sudden now just max level, it's so good on both sides. It's good for the attacking and it's good for the defense as well. Sometimes your opponent will swing thinking, he doesn't have the cores for me doing this and he has to block me anyways to survive. Hello, welcome to Water Spout, and now the opponent's kind of caught off guard. But that is the main deck that kind of constitutes or what we're looking for in the main deck of 50. There is a sideboard. I'm going to talk about it a little bit. I haven't done sideboards on the other videos all that much, I think, except for Dave's from Main Deck Masters, but this one is pretty interesting, and I'll kind of go over it. This is another one of the promo cards, Nautilus Golem. If you are having a hard time establishing with the opponent setting up too many Nexuses, you can do a lot of things with this guy. First one is, during your turn, when one of your Nexuses is exhausted, place a core from the void onto the spirit. You will notice a lot of your cards do not exhaust the Nexus. You're not really trying to get the ramp off of this guy. You could try to utilize it a little bit more, sure, but that's not really important. What you're trying to do with this card, or at least in this deck, is you're using it for the second effect. When the spirit attacks, you may exhaust one of your Nexuses, and yes, if you're wondering if that works with its level 1, 2, 3 effect at the very beginning, yes, it does. He will proc his own ramp, and then the ramp does go onto this spirit specifically. And then when he exhausts a Nexus from his attack, you can turn around and just destroy one of your opponent's Nexuses. This is so cool because blue finally has Nexus destruction on a body, and then it's actually not that hard to do since this deck, I don't know if you noticed, it's mainly blue cost reduction. There was 2 ways I was trying to build this deck. I did try at first to do a red variant where it was mainly red reduction. It did not flow as good as a blue reduction, in my opinion. If we look back at the deck list here and we check out all these symbols that we have listed, if we look, I can't find my cursor for some reason. There we go. If we look here and just keep our eyes on where these reductions are for these cards, you will notice we've got a good amount of both, but our reductions for our baseline, blue, and red, but mainly blue, is usually what we're going to see a lot of. And yes, Shisha obviously has 2. He's a double symbol spirit. And then our only red focus here is just Zemitza solely. That's why in my testing, when I was taking a look at it, red focus just wasn't working out as much as I'd like it to. I do think this deck is healthier with a primarily blue focus. And then obviously from our Nexuses, we've got the 2, the 1 for the red, and then Enchained Arena, which I feel like you're able to recursion and use a lot more thanks to Caldera. And then getting the blue reduction on board is not a problem. Very, very fun. But again, goes back to what we're kind of talking about, which is this guy will help you sustain Nexuses if it's just a Nexus heavy deck and you feel like you have to wear them down that way. Swap this guy out in sideboard, remove Cthulhu Shark if you think that's the issue, or take out Zemitza, a couple of Zemitza since you have so many low costs, and then put in Nautilus Golem anyways. Next up, we've got kind of a fun one to use, which has worked out and not worked out in some instances. This is a very fun effect. During your opponent's attack step, you may destroy one of your Nexuses to refresh this spirit. It's a good blocker, and yes, you guessed it if you were looking or listening from what we were talking about previously. If you use him in combo with Volcanic Island, you can do the When Destroyed effect, exhaust, pay the core, bring the Nexus back on board, pay the core again, and then when you do, the Shark is going to stand up and get ready for blocking once again. As long as you have the cores, you can keep doing that, and then Cthulhu Shark just becomes an infinite blocker. It can be very hard for your opponent to deal with that kind of pressure if they do not have a magic card in hand that can get rid of him. And the other cool effect that allows you to just blow something up that costs 6 or 5 is really good. It's not like Floodstream where it adds the total. It selects a unit that costs 5 or 6 and destroys it. Can be very, very good in some instances. If your opponent is playing in those higher cost units, I think Cthulhu Shark would probably work out better as opposed to more Zemitsas. Because Zemitsas, to go under stuff, she has Astral she can punch through. but she's also there to cleave something of 3,000 or fewer BP, and if your opponent's not playing in there, sizing Zemitza down to maybe a 2 of, as opposed to a 4 of, might be better to make the room. Or if you're feeling like you're just not digging the low end, take him down to 2, take something that is the 6 cost range, whether it's Nautilus Golem or Shark Tree, and put them in, and then you're able to have that utility in this sideboard. Next up, we have a cheeky preference of mine, which I've been playing this box set because purple is an animal, and I hate purple decks, especially Jacob from Main Deck Masters. But in main, you can give something armor, purple, green, red. Why is this good? You cast it in main for 3. If it's late in the game, you're just trying to close out. Throwing that down on something like Caldera, where he cannot get deadly balanced, or where he cannot get deadly doubled, or whatever the case is, and being able to swing as many times as your heart desires and not get thorn prisoned or anything else that just sits your thing down. Outside of getting bounced, it limits the option your opponent has. If it really comes down to that, things I would typically remove is if that is the issue, is being able to stick something to swing at the opponent multiple times, I would probably take out Burning Force and substitute that in, or even take out Water Spout as another example, and then just throw in some icebergs. I know it's like, oh, who would do that? It doesn't make any sense. To me, it does, and it's worked out quite a few times. So I do like that weird little tech that I've had going on this box set. Next up, just more Floodstream. If you're really having a hard time just keeping stuff off the board, or if they're rushing you down with tokens, increasing Floodstream from 2 to 4 is not a bad idea. So that is in the sideboard. And then another cleave that we have, which is Raging Tide in blue. Again, blue is all about removing spirits at a cost, or red is removing spirits at whatever their BP threshold is. This one will just go very wide. This one's not for cleaning up tokens. It's usually for keeping the aggro stuff in check. Flash or main, destroy all spirits that cost 3 or fewer that are not tokens, so it specifically outlines that are not tokens. If 2 or more spirits are destroyed by this effect, place a core from the void into your reserve, so you're able to get more cores, more ramp just for removing stuff, which is great. Again, we're not really ramping too much in this deck. We're looking for self-sustain, which is pretty good, because again, if you're playing Enchained Arena, this is the Nexus that makes it so if you kill it, which you typically will with Caldera or with Cthulhu Shark, you're going to get those cores, and then you can bring them back again with Caldera. If you ditch Shisha from hand, you're getting cores that way. If you put down Monoctopus and just have him alive and he sees any kind of magic card getting used by your opponent, you're going to be able to ramp cores just for being able to witness such a hostile situation take place in front of your Monoctopus, and he'll pay you for the traumas he witnessed by giving you cores in return. So this has been my Sleeve This with my blue-red deck. I hope you guys have fun with it. Tell me if you guys make any changes or variations to it. I hope you guys like the drawing on the board. I think this is a good way for me to keep my thoughts in order, and so I don't overlook or forget anything, or just try to do something that's a little bit different so we can kind of talk it out and you guys can follow along a lot easier. But I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace!